Most people have very little contact with the law. But in fact, laws control our daily lives in many different ways. They help society to run more smoothly. Most of us never break the law, except when we commit minor offences.
Up until we're 16, we're mainly sheltered from the law because we're under our parents' supervision in most things. And at 16, still we have very little choice, but we can get married with our parents' consent.
There are specific laws that apply to us at our age. Like, we're only allowed to look after other children when we're 14, but I don't think many people really take notice of that law. You can get married with your parents' consent at 16, but if you want to get married without their consent, you have to wait till you're 18. Laws affect us a lot, really, but we haven't got the right to do anything about them and change them until we can vote when we're 18, really.
We have to go to school, or have full-time education anyway, until we're 16. We're not allowed to have a full-time job, and only some part-time jobs, 13.
What's your attitude towards the law and law enforcement?
Well, in this country, law enforcement, I think, is handled very well because policemen are more caring than in other countries where I've lived.
I think mainly it's very good. Generally, they treat people of our age with some respect.
Policemen don't go around with guns in their pockets on duty, unlike some other countries like France.
In our country, I think it's quite good. I agree with the fact that we don't have capital punishment, and I think policemen are far less aggressive here than in many other countries. But I think on the whole we have a good enforcement system here, but it's not perfect.
What do you think about the image that the police have in the media?
It's very stereotyped. In comedies, they're sort of very stupid people with silly hats on who say hello, hello, hello all the time.
I think that sometimes in the news we're not told quite the full story. Sometimes the police are possibly in the wrong, but we're not told because it's going to give them a bad image.
In soaps, particularly American soaps, they love shooting people and they're the heroes, and they, if someone's trying to run away, they simply shoot them.
I think it's difficult to see from the media what our policemen are really like.
I spent a day with Police Constable Dave Simpson. He's the local policeman in part of North Oxford. He's been in the police force for 20 years now, but he hasn't always been a local bobby. He's also worked in the city centre and in the traffic division. He patrols his beat on a bicycle, and he sometimes patrols on foot too. This seems like a very quiet neighbourhood, Dave. What do you do when you patrol here?
Normally on patrol here on pedal cycle, as with the rest of my patch, keep an eye on who's about. You do get the odd nuisance caller and also the possible burglar who's looking for what might be to him an easy target.
Dave's beat, or patch as he calls it, covers a very wide area. It includes suburbs, a shopping centre, villages and even a wood. He deals with many different kinds of crime on his beat. In the suburbs, burglary and car thefts are the biggest problems. In the shopping centre, he deals mostly with cases of illegal parking and shoplifting, and he sometimes has to help if there's an accident. When I asked him what the worst part of his job was, he told me that it was informing the families of people who'd been killed or injured in accidents. Here in the woods, he's a long way from those problems. He doesn't often come here, but he told me that it was one of his favourite parts.
This part of my beat is different in that it's very quiet. There is no through traffic, no cars or lorries, no shops and very few people. And the only people that are here are those that want to walk the woods, again for the peace and tranquility and to get away from it all. And it's very nice.
Another part of his beat is the village of Whiteham. I asked Dave whether any serious crimes ever happened here.
Not really, it's usually very quiet. I sometimes have to tell motorists to slow down as they drive through the village, as the roads are quite narrow, as you can see. I usually come to the village once every 2 days. Normally I call in at the farm at the end of the village. And I always call in at the post office, as that's the best place to get any local information. And a cup of tea as well.
All
right, you?
Not so bad.
Kettle on.
Yeah, I can put it on. Do you want to hold JR for me?
Oh, thank you. How's family?
Fine, thank you. How's yours?
Oh, keeping well, thanks.
What's this place, Dave?
This is a large expanse of common land which is known as Port Meadow, and as you can see it spreads right across to Oxford City, and it is used by commoners to graze horses and cattle. In the winter it's normally, as it is now, very quiet apart from the cattle that are on here.
Are there any particular problems or crimes that you find here?
There's very little crime on the meadow itself. You do, believe it or not, still get the odd occasion of horse rustling.
Horse rustling?
A very old-fashioned
People
crime.
stealing horses?
Yes, or just moving them. Again, people think that the horses aren't being looked after, and in fact they are. But there again, the people owning the animals also govern it and patrol it. And if anything is amiss, they contact me.
An important part of Dave's job is to keep in close contact with the communities that he looks after. That's why he travels around on a bicycle and not in a car or on a motorbike. On a bike he can stop and talk to people more easily. And there are some parts of his beat that he couldn't get to by car. There are quite a lot of boats along the canal here, Dave. What kind of people live in them?
We've got a complete cross-section of people up here. We've got some young men that live in boats on their own, and some boats with families in. They might be people that at the time might be out of work. We have some people that are self-employed, and also some people that work within the city of Oxford, but they prefer to live on their own barges, and this is what they do. They live on the canal at Wolvercote and work within the city.
Do the boats stay here all the time?
A lot of them are here from between 3 to 6 months, and then they might move either because they have a project as a self-employed person, or holidays, of course, they can go off.
Dave Simpson doesn't race around in a fast car, and he never carries a gun. His job is about preventing crimes rather than catching criminals. And his most important weapon is contact with the local people. It may be a long way from the world of the TV cop, but that's the day-to-day reality of being the eyes of the law.
We're only allowed to look after other children when we're 14.
We're not allowed to have a full-time job. We have to go to school.
I usually come to the village once every 2 days. In the winter, it's normally, as it is now, very quiet.
He hasn't always been a local bobby. I asked him what the worst part of his job was. I asked Dave whether any serious crimes ever happened here. He told me that it was one of his favourite parts.
I sometimes have to tell motorists to slow down